We start our haunted holiday season with a true gut-wrenching bit of holiday horror as a young woman returns home for the holidays. But what she finds instead of relatives is that a dangerous and deadly urban legend may be all too true.
What's that? You want to be scared? Come with me. You will experience tales of horror, ghosts, and death. It is not recommended for the weak at heart. Listen in the dark. It's more fun that way. This is Weekly Spooky.
The holidays are here, my friends, and whether you welcome them with open arms or you're one of those bah humbug types, I hope you're ready for some seasonal terror. Because it's Wednesday, and you know what that means. Time for a little spooky in your weekly. My name is Henrique Couto, and I'm your host and narrator. And thank you for joining me. We're going to have 4 holiday horror stories coming for you this season. To kick off the haunted holidays, we have a story from Morgan Moore. But I'd be remiss if I didn't say a big congratulations to Morgan. She just welcomed a new member of the family into this world. And we here at Weekly Spooky look forward to many wonderful things from Amelia Moore. Congratulations. But before we get to the story, I want to say a big thank you for listening to the program, and if you want to show us a little bit of love, go to your favorite podcast app, make sure you're subscribed for a brand new story every Wednesday. And then, while you're there, leave a 5-star review, whether it's on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or any of your favorite podcasting apps. It helps us get new listeners, and it costs you nothing. But if you want to go one step further to helping us bring you the spooky every single week, go to weeklyspooky.com and click on Patreon. For as little as $1 a month, you can help us bring the show every single week. We've done it every week for 3 years. Help us do it for more and more to come. And get exclusive perks, bonus episodes, and my undying gratitude. Because you see, I'm buying a new furnace right now, and I could really use your support. We have 95 backers at Patreon, the most we've ever had. I would consider it a wonderful Christmas gift to make it to 100 by New Year's. But now, my friends, it's time for the story after a quick word from our sponsors. Santa Claus is Killin' the Town by Morgan Moore. Christmas music flows out from the stereo in the car. Janice had been listening to the music for hours on end as she and her girlfriend Molly drove along. By this point in their road trip, all of the music, courtesy of an old-time 50s and 60s radio station, had long since blended together. To Janice, it was all just crackling background noise that sounded all the same, with only good old Frosty and Rudolph to break up the monotony. "How much longer?" she asked Molly. "Not too much." "Yeah, but much?" "I'm feeling kind of cramped," Janice responded. Molly smirked and gave her partner a mischievous and playful look. "Now listen, kiddo. If you keep that up, I'll just have to turn this car around and take my sweet time bringing you home." Janice found no words to reply, and instead offered a roll of her eyes and a middle finger. "For real, though, it isn't that much more we have to go. Just to the end of this road, a few turns and a hill, and there we'll be. Home," Molly explained. "If you say so," Janice said. The two were on their way to Molly's hometown of Decatur. They had been invited to spend the holidays with some of Molly's friends for a bit of an impromptu reunion. Molly thought it would be a fun, cozy getaway and could give her a great gift in a surprise visit with her parents, too. Janice wasn't super eager, though. She had never been the social type and was a wallflower even when hanging out with her own friends. The idea of spending Christmas with complete strangers in an old inn wasn't something high on her agenda. Then there was also the subject of Molly's parents. They were sweet, supportive of their daughter in every way, and had shown Janice kindness the few times they had met previously. But those were in controlled situations, out in public, not in the privacy of their own house and town. Something about the whole affair rubbed Janice the wrong way and had her feeling anxious. But it was Christmas, and it was for Molly, the love of her life. So she decided to give it a try. Maybe it could be fun to meet her old friends and spend Christmas in a little town. And who knew? Maybe Molly's parents would still be as kind and welcoming as they seemed to be. Plus, if everything went well, she could finally bring out the ring she had bought for Molly, but had yet to find the right moment to propose. True to her word, Molly turned left at the end of the country road, and a few turns, a hill, and a short stretch of road later, the two were in Decatur. Janice peered out the window as they drove along. Decatur reminded her a lot of paintings that portrayed idyllic small towns and a good old-fashioned America. Something akin to old Norman Rockwell paintings. But she liked it. The old buildings and independent businesses mixed with the snow gave her a warm and secure feeling. Looks can be deceiving, she told herself. The couple arrived at their destination, the Chamberlain Inn, a family-run establishment. They parked by the front and raced from the near bitter cold outdoors into the Chamberlain. Inside, Janice and Molly found a warm, lit entry room, a small but fanciful check-in desk against the back wall, and at the desk was a little old lady. "Why, hello there," she said raspily as the two approached. "Hello, we're here to check in," Molly stated. "Do you have a reservation?" the clerk asked. "Yup, it'll be under Molly Burke. We're also part of a group staying here for a little reunion if that helps," Molly explained. "Oh, you're part of that group too? Well, then we should get you checked in so you can join them." "My friends are already here?" Molly asked. Janice absent-mindedly paced around the room, looking at the decor, bored. "Yes, ma'am, they're in the back parlor. Here you are, Molly Burke. One room." The clerk parroted out information jotted on an index card. At the reading of one room, she glanced over at Janice. Janice caught the look and stared back. The clerk looked at Molly, who had an expression of lacking amusement, catching on to what the old lady was taken aback by. "Well, young miss, you're up on the second floor. Last door on the right." "Thanks," Molly said matter-of-fact as she took the key. Janice grabbed their bags and met Molly at the staircase. Catching the old lady watching them, Janice stopped walking. When Molly stopped in confusion, Janice kissed her. She smirked at the clerk after they broke the kiss. Molly looked at the woman's aghast expression and giggled before the two went up to their room. A little while later, the two returned downstairs, freshly showered, freshly stretched out from their 3-hour car ride, and dressed for the finest of small-town inn reunions. Janice and Molly made their way to the parlor room in the back and found a group of 4 others seated around a small table. A moment later, somebody, a girl, noticed them. She let out a shriek of excitement that gained the attention of the other 3. They also cried out in joy at the sight of Molly. The 4 got out of their seats and nearly bum-rushed her in their excitement. What followed was a series of hugs, tears of happiness, how are yous, and common expressions of friendship. Janice smiled a little at the beginning of the onslaught, but couldn't help her social anxiety from rising a few levels. So she backed away from the mob and found a spot against a bookshelf. Molly caught the change out of the corner of her eye and also saw the look of unease with a tinge of being upset at not being included. She smiled and broke away from her friends and lightly strode over to her girlfriend. Where, oh, where are my manners? I'm such a rude bitch sometimes. Everybody, this is Janice, my girlfriend. To punctuate her introduction and soft apology to Janice, Molly kissed her lovingly. Janice blushed, but smiled. "Hi," she squeaked out. "Hello to you too. My name is Elijah," a tall man told her. "I'm Kate. Nice to meet you, Janice," an average height but clearly surgically enhanced woman said. "We're Marcus and Amanda," the two said, a couple that looked as plain Jane and homey as Decatur itself. "Well, that's everyone, dear. Come on, let's eat some food and get a little drinking in while we embarrass each other with old stories," Molly proclaimed. The group agreed and returned to the table. Molly gave Janice an apologizing look for not immediately introducing her. Janice smiled and shrugged her shoulders. She gave her a peck on the cheek. The two then walked hand in hand to the table and joined the others. Minutes turned to hours as the six conversed about their pasts and their presents. To her surprise, Janice found herself being brought into the conversation, and her anxiety level was decreasing at a rapid rate. It didn't appear to be forced either. They seemed to enjoy her company and her theirs. Despite her initial hesitation on the whole affair, Janice had to admit that she was, in fact, having a good time. The full wintry moon shone through the parlor window. A fire was roasting in the fireplace, helmed by Marcus and Elijah. The ladies were seated in various chairs with Janice and Molly sharing a love seat. A tall, old grandfather clock ticked away the time. "So, what do you think of our little town, Janice?" Amanda asked before taking a sip from a mug of tea. Janice took a sip from her own mug filled with a combo of hot chocolate and alcoholic creamer. "It's actually pretty nice. I thought it would be some little boring Midwest town that time forgot, but it isn't all that bad." "Except it is a boring little Midwest town," Elijah interjected with a chuckle. "She's so modest and such a liar. Janice loves old-time stuff like this. She practically lives at the Antiques Village back at home," Molly chimed in. "Is that so?" Kate questioned in a humored manner. "Yup," Molly said. She looks over at a now blushing Janice and pecks her on the cheek with a playful smile. "Anything old or anything that looks like it was plucked out of Mayberry is this girl's jam." "Then why is she dating you?" Marcus shot in with a well-timed delivery. The line garnered laughs from everybody in the parlor. "Yeah, what can I say? I like old stuff. It's better quality. The music, the movies, the look and feel of everything. It's just so grand," she said, punctuating the last word in a style similar to old movie actresses. "What about stories?" Elijah asked. "Huh?" Janice tilted her head in confusion. "Do you like old stories?" he asked again. "Yeah." "Then you'll love Decatur even more. The town is filled with old stories of love, fun, adventure, and even some gnarly shit," Elijah continued. "Gnarly shit? Like what? Crimes?" Janice questioned, her posture now one of intrigue and full investment in the conversation. "Here we go," Kate said sarcastically. "Yeah, I mean, we got bank robberies, a couple of politically inclined crimes, a murder here and there. Then, of course, there's old Robbie Clint," Elijah said. The room went deathly quiet. All merriment and holiday cheer that had filled and bled into the walls was quickly sucked out, leaving only a bitter, cold sense of reality and dread. Janice looked around and noticed that her companions all had an expression of fear and anger. "Elijah!" Amanda nearly shouted. "You know better," Marcus scolded. I'm only trying to entertain our new friend, he told them. Yeah, but come on. You know we don't speak his name, Molly chimed in gloomily. I'm confused. Why is it such a bad thing that Rob... Before Janice can finish saying the name, Molly put a hand over her mouth and shushed her. The four lifelong friends looked at each other. To Janice, it looked as if they were having a telekinetic conversation with one another. Eventually, Marcus sighed. Well, since you started it, you may as well finish it. Tell her, he instructed Elijah. Just don't say his name, Kate added. Or at the very least, don't say all of it, Molly continued. All right. Well then, Janice. Ready to hear Decatur's infamous rise to fame? Elijah questioned the girl as if he was an investigator. Janice glanced at all the faces in the room. When her eyes settled on Molly, they found a look of terror and sadness. Glancing down, she noticed that Molly had grabbed hold of one of Janice's hands and was squeezing it. She couldn't tell if it was for support for her or out of fear of whatever this terrifying tale was. Yeah, Janice said dryly. Give it to me. Elijah stoked the fire once more before standing up. He made his way to the window and looked up at the freezing moon. With a sigh and a gulp, he began the tale. Our story begins when we were all little kids still crapping in our diapers. It was actually close to Christmas. Kind of eerie that I'm telling it now of all times of the year. Then again, how many of us actually think about Christmas outside of this time of year? Anyway, I'm rambling. Robbie was a local high school dropout. He was about 18 or 19, depends on who you ask. Being a dropout meant the only work he could find was in fast food joints, or as a janitor, or some other menial work. He lucked out a little bit in that he found a job at a local radio station, where he mostly cleaned but was taught how the whole place worked. Nothing to make a huge living off of, but Robbie seemed to enjoy it. Well, that was how he made money at night. During the day, if he wasn't at home living a lonesome life, Robbie worked as a babysitter. Thing is, Robbie wasn't always the most patient person, and he had a reputation for letting loose some of that impatience from time to time. Now, I don't know about you all, but kids can be infuriating little brats. So to some, it wasn't a surprise that Robbie quickly found himself out of babysitting when an allegation of him hurting a kid came out. He claimed the mom had the hots for him, and when he turned her down, she decided to be spiteful. She said Robbie beat the kid to near death because her son was having a tantrum. Nobody really knows what happened, or at least remembers now. But the end result was a lot of people pissed and refusing to hire him to watch their kids. The backlash was so bad that Robbie even lost his job at the radio station. Young, alone, filled with pent-up anger at everything bad in his life, out of work, and ostracized from pretty much the whole town, Robbie decided he would get some revenge. Some sweet, sinister revenge. On Christmas Eve night, he broke into the radio station and executed what little staff was on hand. Then he set up for a broadcast, just as he was taught. Robbie interrupted a marathon of Christmas tunes and told the kids who were listening that he was good old Santa Claus.
Ho, ho, ho!
Santa Robbie said that Decatur was one of his favorite towns in the world, and because of that, he wanted all of the good boys and girls to meet him that night at the Christmas tree set up in the center of downtown during Christmas Eve Mass. The parents figured, why the hell not? Their kids always complained about going to church anyways. When it came time for Mass, parents that decided to do it dropped their kids off at the tree with Santa Claus. In reality, a disguised Robbie, before they went off to church. When service was over and the parents returned to collect their kids, they found something straight out of a horror movie. Their precious little babies had been killed. Immediately, they stormed to the radio station, finding the dead crew and the security footage of Robbie doing the dirty, bloody deed, thus telling them who in fact was behind the massacre of their children. It took nearly all night, but they eventually found him in a bathroom in the church they had gone to for Mass. Robbie had smashed a mirror and slit his own wrists and throat. The parents disposed of his body by cremating it at the local funeral parlor. Christmas that year was truly red and green. Red from the blood and green from how sick the whole affair was. Elijah finished the story and quickly made his way to a small bar in the parlor, taking a long drink from a whiskey bottle. Everybody else sat in silence. Janice spoke up. "So, why aren't you supposed to say his name then? Your story didn't mention that." Some say that because he killed himself in a church, that his soul was cursed and damned for eternity, and that if you even say his name once, he'll return to butcher more people. Or it's out of respect for the victims. Duh. Nobody in this town likes to hear about him, Marcus replied. So what? You just pretend he never existed? Do you, censor out a letter in his name if you write about him, like how some people do on Twitter? Because if so, that's pretty stupid. I mean, it's like saying the F word or the N word. You're just making the other people say it in their mind, so you don't have to be accountable for your words, Janice explained. No, we're not that crazy, Kate responded. You just gasp in horror if somebody said his name? Janice retorted. Amanda rolled her eyes and shook her head disapprovingly at Molly. Some folks just don't understand town customs. Janice released a sigh of exhaustion and irritation at the conversation. Guys, I'm pretty sure if you say his name, he won't appear like Bloody Mary. Besides, if it was out of respect as you claim, then why did you all seem so scared out of your skin when Elijah first said his name? Silence filled the room again. Nobody wanted to talk about the subject of the story. Janice looked over at Molly and found only a look of confusion at the reunion's turn. Tired of it, Janice stood up and walked to the door leading out of the parlor. She turned to face her companions. Robbie Clint, Robbie Clint, Robbie Clint, Robbie Clint, Robbie Clint, she said in quick succession before leaving the parlor. Janice found herself unable to sleep. Her mind was filled with nightmares of children being killed by a psychotic Santa and of her love being taken away by some unknown creature of fear. She sighed and got out of bed, threw on a robe, and left her and Molly's room. Quietly, she walked through the inn, not wanting to wake anybody up or be confronted for what happened earlier in the night. By process of elimination, Janice walked all of the upstairs and all of the downstairs, finding her journey ended in the parlor. She made herself a drink and relaxed on the love seat. What was supposed to be a pleasant Christmas getaway, and started off well, had turned into a tense one. Janice told herself that perhaps it would be better in the morning between the six of them, and that Molly's parents could still be a good time. Yet a little voice in her head argued otherwise. Janice grunted in frustration as she placed the glass on the bar. She looked around the parlor and found herself staring at a closet on the other side of the room. During the earlier festivities, she had seen it, but hadn't given it much thought. It was just a closet after all, but her inability to sleep sparked a curiosity for what was inside. Quietly, Janice walked to the closet and opened it. Inside was an old radio that stood up to her midriff. Intrigued by the radio, Janice started fiddling with the various knobs on it. A smile formed on her face as her anxiety melted away while playing with the antique. Looking it over closer, she noticed that it wasn't plugged in. She had to know if it would work. Slowly, Janice pulled the radio out of the closet and pushed it over to the closest outlet she could find. With excitement trembling through her body, she plugged in the radio and turned the knobs. Silence gave way to a soft, fuzzy crackling. "It works!" she exclaimed in a whisper. Filled with giddiness, Janice played with the tuner knob to find a channel while making sure the volume wasn't too loud. The static that initially greeted her did so with every twist she made of the knob. Janice kept playing with it, determined to find a station that was broadcasting.
"Ho, ho, ho!"
boomed out from the radio's speaker. In surprise, Janice turned the volume down more. "I found one."
"Ho, ho, ho! Merry Christmas! It's your old friend, Santa Claus. I want to wish all of you good boys and girls a wonderful Christmas, and to show kindness to their fellow man, even those who are naughty. That includes those who aren't actually naughty, but are said and made to be. Even those little ones get gifts too."
Janice listened in complete confusion as to what it was that she was even listening to.
"And speaking of gifts, I brought gifts for everyone, including you, Janice."
Her mouth dropped some. "What?"
"Yes, you too, Janice. You get a gift. You've been the nicest one of all by giving me a gift."
"I did?"
"Why, of course. You gave me the gift of acknowledgement and resurrection."
Janice blinked in total bewildered confusion. Then it clicked in her head. "Robbie Clint?" she exclaimed.
"Yes, sirree. Thank you from the bottom of my formerly non-beating heart. Are you ready for your gift?"
I guess?"
"Well then, close your eyes, and I'll give it to you."
Janice did what she was told. The radio ceased to make any noises afterwards. She sat in silence, wondering what the hell was even going on, and that this was the last time she would ever drink this late at night. "Open your eyes." She did, and found the radio no longer there. In its place was a man in a Santa costume, blood dripping from his wrists and throat. There was a gleeful smile on his face and a hatchet in his hand. Around him were the bodies of Amanda and Kate and Marcus and Elijah and the innkeeper and of Molly. Janice gasped in horror and looked at the man. Robbie Clint?" Janice squeaked out. "Merry Christmas," Robbie Clint proclaimed, before swinging his axe down. I can't think of a better way to start the horror days than with Morgan Moore's terrifying story. I hope you enjoyed it as much as me. I'm a sucker for folklore, and this one, it brings the hometown tale feel. Next week, not only will we have another terrifying Christmas story, but we'll also have a new episode of Terrifying and True right here on Monday, and it'll be all about Krampus. That's right, Santa Claus's, not so nice cousin? Let's call him a cousin. So make sure you keep your eyes peeled for that, and then for a very special Krampus story that Wednesday by our very own Rob Fields as we head to Strickfield for the holidays. Thank you so much for letting us entertain you as the weather turns cold. And an extra special thank you to all of our Patreon backers. We're at 95 backers, the most we've ever had. So if you're considering joining, now would be a great time at weeklyspooky.com. And speaking of which, I want to say an extra special thank you to our Patreon podcast boosters, folks who pay just a little bit more to hear their names on the show. And they are Kelly Oram, Julia Kirsch, Christopher Sullivan, Brent McCullough, Gino Lyons, Steve King, Karen Weemet, Jack Kerr, Jeff and George Hilton, Craig Cohen, and Kevin Fry. Thank you all so much. And if you want to hear your name on every program we do, just go to weeklyspooky.com, click on Patreon, and select Podcast Booster. It really would be an immense help. I'm not joking. My furnace decided to die, but you know what? It was a loud furnace that always interrupted recording anyway. I'm excited for a brand new furnace. Boy howdy, but I'm not excited to pay for it. So, if you want to help me out, I appreciate it greatly, but at the end of the day, just you being here is all I truly need. But for now, I'm going to leave you. Until next week. For myself, for my executive producer Rob Fields, my producer Dan Wilder, and my composer Ray Mattis, I'll talk at you later.
Thank you for listening. Make sure to find your way back next week. But for now, you are safe. Trust me.